Hey, Lord of the Rings fans, we are back with another episode of your favorite podcast, Voices of Arda. Everybody, say what's up to my favorite co-host, KaliCosplay. What up, Kali?
Hi, everybody.
What's going on? What's going on? We moving right along with the year. We had a little gap in some episodes. We had some stuff going on, but we
We
are
had a
back.
big trivia event, which you guys probably just watched. So that's
Hopefully
what
you
was.
didn't. Hopefully you didn't, because we lost. Oh, your boy lost.
Hey,
You
I'm
know what
To
I'm
a
saying? But
worthy team.
worthy team. I actually got to say congratulations because someone who kicked our ass is on as our guest right now. I'm kind of salty. So if you see me be a little rude to them, that's why. No, they did an excellent job. I was very, very impressed, amazed. Your boy knew better was defeated in trivia, but it shall not happen again. I'm going to get ask everybody, and Callie's going to introduce, but I'm going to ask when we do introduce, everybody give this person a round of applause because they are amazing. They make wonderful content. Callie, who do we have as our guest today?
She is on social media as exlibrismir. Her name is Miranda. Hey,
What's up,
Miranda.
Hi.
Miranda?
Hello. Thank you guys for having me. I'm so
Tell us
sorry
about
about Trivia
yourself.
New Betta.
You know what?
Um,
You win some, you
Don't
lose some.
apologize. There are things that we don't need to apologize for.
yeah, sorry, not sorry, one of those
There
situations.
you go.
But hey, I'm Miranda. Yeah, like Callie said, I'm on Instagram and TikTok as exlibrismir. I make Tolkien Tuesday videos. So every Tuesday, I'll tell you a little 90-second tidbit of Tolkien information. And then I'm also trying to do, some other fun videos, and I do read alongs sometimes, and just here to love the Lord of the Rings like everyone else, basically.
Absolutely. Your content is so fun. It's so dope. It's so
Thank
refreshing
you.
to get those clips every Tuesday. I look forward to them. So thank you so much for, all you do in the Tolkien community, your bright disposition, your knowledge and your skill. And I was very, very impressed, on the trivia. You really came through for your team. And I couldn't tell you how excited I was to see the Rangers of Trevelyan come out on top, even though it was at my detriment. I was very happy for you guys. So
Thank
keep it
you.
up. That is amazing. That really shows
Thanks.
that you got your head like, in the lore. You're on top of everything. It was awesome to see. And you guys had matching uniforms. They were really prepared. They really was prepared.
Yeah, oh
And
yeah.
I
Yeah.
gotta say, I was a little jelly. I was a little jealous, but I appreciated so much to see you guys have matching backgrounds. You guys were really uniform. It was amazing. So
Thank
make sure
you.
you
No,
guys
it
go
was,
follow Miranda.
thank you so much. No, it was fun and it was a great time. I appreciate that. Thanks for saying
Oh, no problem. I mean every word of it. You know what I'm saying? With only a little bit of jealousy.
that.
So
And speaking
today,
of community though, we so Voices of Arda community is of course our big thing. We use that word a lot. We like to involve everybody and just have everyone in here having fun and talking Tolkien. Miranda is also really big about community. I don't know if you've started a really active one, very thriving. It's very fun. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
You mean on Discord
Yeah.
or just in general?
Just in general,
Um,
I've
um,
noticed that your followers and you have a very um interactive and very fun relationship, and they're very
yeah.
supportive of you and you are of them, and I love that.
Thank you. No, yeah, it's kind of amazing. It's something I never really expected. When I started making videos, it was just for fun. And then the way that people have responded to them and like have just been like, oh, we're just all here because we all love the same thing has been like my favorite part of all of it. So it's honestly just genuinely fun for me to like hop on Instagram and like read everyone's comments and respond to them and interact because I'm meeting so many cool people who just also love what I love. Um, so I have been, yeah, trying to make my content specifically accessible to everyone because like I get feedback of like, oh, like I started rereading Lord of the Rings because of this thing that you said, or like I reconnected with my dad because he loves Lord of the Rings too, or like we're learning, and like it all just like blows my mind. So I'm just kind of going with the flow, but I like love all of it. And then I actually, especially when trivia happened and I went back and watched the stream, like so many people in the live comments were like shouting us out and like, giving us support. And it was like so, so touching to see. And so, like, yeah, the community that's on Instagram that I have stumbled into, to be honest, is like, I love it so much. It's so great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That is amazing to hear, and it makes us just warm-hearted. I really appreciate you being a part of our community and you starting your own community and just everything expanding and just the love that we share for Tolkien and just being good-natured, good-hearted people. We all get that from the books. I think obviously our upbringing and we also get it from the books. I feel like we want to be as much as like hobbits as possible. And I hear what you're saying and I feel it to the core because when we got involved and we kind of like started our own little community thing, like accidentally, like it just kind of happened on its own. And just to find like-minded people and like-hearted people is like amazing. It feels really good. So I'm right there with you, and I appreciate your work that you've been doing and just keep doing it. Keep bringing smiles on people's faces. I know those comments that you get when somebody says, "Hey, I'm doing this because you made me want to read again, or you made me want to reconnect with this, or with this person, or maybe it makes you feel so good and warm inside. So I want you to feel that forever, and if you keep it up, you will always because you're amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, and I honestly like the fact that I've also gotten to connect with community like you guys, like all the other creators who are doing the same thing is like one of the most fun things that's come out of this. So it's awesome.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Amazing. All right, I have a little story for you guys. A very short story here. So Boromir walks into the room and he sees that Faramir is on the phone. Who's on the horn? Boromir asks. Faramir says, Dad is calling me to tell me to get better soon. That's nice, replied Boromir. I didn't know you were sick. I'm not. Dad just thinks I could get better.
Now that was actually good right there.
Yeah.
So I don't know what
very
you
true.
do more
So
of that.
true.
Do more of that. That was good. That was
That
like,
was actually challenging because that's a meme that I thought was really funny. And I was like, how am I gonna make a joke out of a meme properly? And that is what I came up with. So
but I
No,
love
I
the
loved
segue. I love the segue because as Callie knows and as Miranda knows, that is specifically our topic today. Boromir, Faramir, and Denethor. And that whole relationship that they got going on. And I really want to hear what Miranda has to say about it, what she thinks about it. We're going to get in depth. We're going to go in and we might as well get started with that stuff. So, Callie, like, I know you got a question you want to ask. Start this thing off. Let's go. Let's start firing on all cylinders because this is going to be a heated topic. You know what I'm saying? Because, whew, Denethor, tomatoes.
tomatoes.
That's the main thing we should talk about, I think, is tomatoes. That's like the
Yo,
most important part.
Who made that choice? He's got to be the most famous person in all of Lord of the Rings. The person who aesthetically was like, yo, let's have him eating little tomatoes. And then now it's like the thing. It's like more important than destroying the ring. People talk about Denethor and these tomatoes.
That's a good point. Yeah, whoever made that tomato choice is iconic.
He's iconic right now. So
I don't really have a question for Miranda. It's really just a word, and by a word I mean a name, and that name is Faramir. And I think I can
Faramir.
just say that, and she will take it away for us.
Yeah,
Take it
I
away,
mean,
take
first
it
of all,
away.
shout out to Team Faramir. Very proud member of Team Faramir. One of those things that I'm happy to talk about for endless amounts of time. So very excited that this is our topic.
That's
Um,
awesome.
I mean, yeah, I think it's one of the most interesting like family dynamics in the Lord of the Rings, like seeing the difference between Faramir and Boromir's brothers, and then the difference between their relationship with Denethor, and then their relationships with just in general with like, being a warrior and with what's going on in the world. And like it's one of those really, really fascinating dynamics that Tolkien created. Um, and I love like the dichotomy of them just being so different, but then still so loving to each other, Boromir and Faramir. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I love it.
I guess we
I,
should, for anyone who might be unfamiliar, we should introduce who these people are. Can we do a quick little thing?
yeah, sure. So, if you guys have ever watched Lord of the Rings, Denethor is the steward of Gondor. He is in charge of Gondor. He is in effect, he is the king without being the king. So the stewards take over control over Gondor in the absence of the king. And there has been many, many stewards because there has not been a king since Aenor was slain by the Witch King of Angmar, he went into Minas Morgul and was never seen again. And ever since then, there have been a line of stewards that have been taking care and control of Gondor, in charge of everything. It's same powers as the king, but they do not sit on the throne. They actually sit at the bottom and they rule. And they've actually gotten really comfortable with their powers and their control over the city. And they actually kind of don't want to relinquish it. And this is seen in no greater effect than within Denethor, because he knows that a possible heir is appearing and he does not want to relinquish control of the city. But Denethor has two sons. He has an older son named Boromir, and Boromir is a great captain of men. Boromir is the captain of Gondor's armies, and he's very forward in battle. He is a man's man. He is very much like his father, very willful and very proud. Whereas his second son, Faramir, is, in a word for Miranda, just amazing. He's all around a good guy. Not that Boromir isn't a good guy. I want to make that clear. It's just he uses his wisdom, not just his strength in arms and his might. And where this comes into a problem with Denethor is he kind of questions certain things, and he kind of, listens to others and lore and Gandalf specifically. And, he follows his heart. Where something doesn't sit right with him, he's not going to just go off on his father's word. And I think Faramir also reminds Denethor of somebody else, which we'll get into in a little bit. But there is a big problem what Denethor has with Faramir. He is one of those fathers that loves his son, that does his will, does his bidding, is more like him. And his other son, he kind of like, why can't you be more like your brother? And we've all, I think, experienced that or seen somebody in that family dynamic before. So it's a very glaring story. When you see it, you're like, wow, yep. I know that guy. I know that dad, or I know that family. So you just feel for Faramir. But Faramir is beloved. He is beloved by his people, and he is no coward by any means. But his father kind of looks at him like, "Oh, you're not like your brother." When in all actuality, he is just as good in arms. He is just as brave as a captain, and it tells you that. So if you guys want to learn more about Faramir and Boromir, you can also find stuff not only in the Lord of the Rings, but also in the appendices. You can find a lot more information about the character of those two characters. And you can see that, like I said, Boromir is very much his father's son. And he's like, okay, Dad, yep, I'm going to go do what you need. It needs to be done for the city. And Faramir is like, well, wouldn't it be prudent to do this? Like, maybe we should move this way. It's wiser to do. And he's kind of questions and does his own thing, follows his hearts, does for the people in a different type of way. And the people love him for it and they revere him for it, but his father kind of looks down on him. Miranda, what are your thoughts on Faramir and his relationship with Denethor?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're pretty spot on. Like the idea that Boromir is the stronger one and Faramir is this sort of like weaker one strength wise is not at all true. And like Faramir is also a captain, and he's great when it comes to battle. He's like a renowned warrior, and his like everyone that follows him adores him, but he thinks about it in a different way. Like he wants to appreciate things out of like the fact that they're beautiful and like scholarly, and like his wisdom is what's guiding him in all this. And I think all he wants is for things to be like pure and good. And so for him to have that motivation and then still like get met with not the greatest treatment from Denethor, is so sad, because he just wants to try, But I think with Denethor, like my personal thought on like their dynamic, just from an overview, is like Denethor is not in a very great place when it comes to being the steward. Like he's kind of been dealt a bad hand, and what he sees in Boromir is maybe potential to make something better in a way that is like going to be motivating for Gondor, because Gondor has struggled, and he thinks that Boromir might be able to save that. And then he sees Faramir, who spend so much time with Gandalf and thinks about things completely differently and isn't on the same page with where Gondor needs to be, maybe. And it just causes resentment and like really not good treatment. There's a lot of people who say that Denethor is like a huge villain because of the way that he treats Faramir. But yeah, it's an interesting dynamic for sure.
Yeah. Um, if I can speak on Denethor for a second, I want to actually separate movie Denethor from book Denethor.
Yeah.
Book Denethor is a mighty man. He's also top-notch warrior and very strong will. They compare his will to Gandalf's will. And we see that in the Return of the King when Pippin and Gandalf come to Minas Tirith. They have basically they have a stare down, and Pippin's like, "Yo, this dude is." He could just feel the tension, but he also saw the will and the strength of it of Denethor, and he was like, "Yo, he's a mighty man. He comes from a mighty lineage." But as you said, he was dealt a very bad hand. Now, it was in the time of Denethor's grandfather that Sauron had went back to Mordor and announced himself. And then when Denethor's father, Ecthelion II, comes into power, there's things moving. There's the Corsairs of Umbar moving. There are Easterlings moving. Things are moving, and it's not going well. So Denethor is like literally being looked at like, hey, you're going to be the next king. You're a great warrior. He's learning how to take care of these things. He is a great warrior himself. But something interesting happens. A great captain of men known as Thorngill comes into the fray, and he comes out of Rohan and comes, and they don't know where he's from, and he doesn't say too much, but the deeds that he do impress the hell out of Ecthelion. And like Ecthelion was like super amazed, and the people were moved. And we know that Thorngill is none other than Aragorn, Elisar, the true king. But he doesn't reveal this yet, and he has great deeds to do. And he constantly warns Ecthelion, hey, listen, the Corsairs of Umbar and that fleet are going to be a problem. We probably should do something about it. And then he goes and he does something about it. He goes and he like nearly single-handedly like takes care of the Corsairs of Umbar, and he wins great renown. He becomes beloved by all, and it kind of overshadows Denethor. Now it also states that Denethor is no joke. He absolutely was great at fighting, great, strong, all of that stuff. But the fact that his father was just like, yeah, but I like that guy. You can see where you see where he gets it from, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna be that way to my son. Like I need him to be what I couldn't be for my dad because I kind of got overshadowed. And then we see later when Aragorn actually does come, or he realizes that Aragorn is coming with Gandalf. He doesn't want any part of it, and it's a sickness that just lies over Denethor. So Denethor actually does a great job. Now the book tells you he does a great job with the defense of the city. Actually, he was on top of his stuff. He was doing a great job with the defense of his city. If you leave it up to the movie, he's terrible. He didn't do anything right. This, down, and third. But in the book, he actually is doing a great job. He just falters because he tries too hard and uses the Palantir because he wants to know what's going on. Now, they know, hey, you don't use this Palantir because the Ithilstone was taken. And if the Ithilstone was taken by the Nazgul, Sauron has it. So all the previous kings, or the previous all the previous stewards don't use that Palantir specifically for that reason, because they know that those two Palantirs, the Arda Stone and the Ithilstone, are most closely connected out of the seven with each other. There's different stones that work with each other more closely than others, and those two stones specifically connect to each other. So they don't use the stone. He was so hard up for information and to protect the city because he knew that the doom of the world was going to fall during his time, that he's like, I got to do this. And he's very strong-willed. He used it and was able to turn it to his will and to look places. But Sauron somehow ensnared him and made him see what Sauron wanted him to see. And this is where we get the Denethor making terrible decisions or giving up to despair. But Denethor actually was a great leader, very strong-willed. Sauron couldn't even break his will. Sauron had to turn his gaze basically to make him see something that he would despair from, as opposed to taking control of him. So Denethor just needs a little more respect. He doesn't only eat tomatoes. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts, Miranda, on Denethor and that whole Thorngill dynamic?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's a testament to how strong Denethor was that he could actually use the Palantir like he did. Like the fact that he used the Palantir and encountered Sauron, but wasn't fully corrupted by Sauron, and like that already shows that he is such a strong-willed man and of a very strong lineage. And like you said, like Sauron had to almost just manipulate him in a different way by making things seem bleaker than they are, by basically like showing him like catered content of like, look at how bad the world is, kind of like depressing him and making him feel like all hope is lost. If it wasn't for him seeing these sort of altered realities of what's going to happen, like he wasn't corrupted by Sauron. But I think with the past with Thronegil, I think that set in motion so much of his dynamic with Faramir too, because he saw Thronegil Aragorn come in and his father was like, praising him, and Thronegil brought Gandalf in. Like he's the one who introduced Gandalf into that sort of like household and say like we should trust the leadership of Gandalf. And Thorongil didn't, or I mean, Denethor didn't trust it. And so later on, when his younger son Faramir becomes a pupil of Gandalf, like he already is inclined to not trust Gandalf, to have like, resentment about how he was brought into the situation. So a lot of it stems back to the time with Thorongil being in Minas Tirith, I think.
Yeah, I love that connection that you made with Thorngill bringing in Gandalf, and then him, Denethor later is not having any trust in Gandalf. He's like, "Yeah, you brought this in," and he tells him, "I see what you doing. With your left hand, you use me as a shield against Mordor, and then the other hand, you seek to supplant me. Like I know who you riding
Mm-hmm.
with. You know what I'm saying? I'm not bowing to him." And that's actually a beautiful, beautiful line, because it harkens back to what happened. And like you said, he's like, "Hey, trust this wizard." But he also told him, "Hey, don't trust Saruman. Something's not right with Saruman." And and the wisdom there, who wants to be told that they're wrong? And Faramir shows wisdom like that, where Boromir just goes along with everything that his father wants. And so he's like, "Yo, Boromir is my great captain." Now, we got to give Boromir some credit, because the great deeds that he does lends well to why his father feels the way he feels. Even when Boromir gets slain, they don't believe it. Like nobody doesn't believe it. They're like, "What?" And the Denethor's line, which is so telling, and I kind of use it to scale when I'm doing power, I'm doing versus battles. Um, Boromir was such a great fighter that his father was like, "How did he die when he only had orcs to withstand? Like how? Like that's not even possible." And then Pippin had to tell him, "Hey, the mightiest warrior could get slain by arrows, and Boromir was pierced by many." And you think about it, like for him to say it's not even possible for him to, what are you talking about? He's just fighting orcs. There's no way. Like no. And the deeds that he did, taking the bridge back, destroying the bridge and swimming back to shore and surviving that whole ordeal with his brother. It was crazy. And Boromir, we see how great of a fighter he is. So I understand Denethor's love for that, like because Boromir's people love Boromir as well, and the men of Rohan love Boromir. They're hurt when Boromir is slain. They're like, what? Like Éomer's like, everything you say is a curse. And we're like, what are you talking about? Everything you're saying is foul, is foolishness. So we got to give some love to all three of those households, Faramir, Boromir, and Denethor. They are not exactly how the movie portrays them, because the movie has to make a point and it has to say, "Hey, let's create a little more drama so you can understand the dynamic." But these are very heroic, brave people. Even Denethor, even though Denethor despairs and makes terrible decisions and he's unforgivable, but he is, if you're in his position, very much like Boromir, things look different on the other side. So what do you think about that? Because it's easy to love Faramir, which we all do, but the weight that is on Denethor and Boromir, being the eldest son, being the one, there's a weight there as well. So what do you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the movie not only makes Denethor seem a lot weaker than he is, but also the same with Boromir. Like they kind of do Boromir a little bit dirty too in the films because he's a huge hero. And like in the books, the whole like it's repeated so many times that like Boromir's just trying to get back to Minas Tirith. Like his goal is to get back. Like he's in the Fellowship, but his ultimate like ending point is to go back to Gondor because he's trying to help Gondor. Um, and you see just like his motivation is like, no, I have a responsibility to my people. I'm like a leader among my people and they need my help. They need all of our help. And like, that's my motivation here. Um, and I think that gets seen as like almost like him like not prioritizing destroying the ring, but like in his mind, like he has a way that he can save his people and he's trying to take that opportunity, which like, who can blame him for that?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel the same way, and I make videos saying it all the time. That line, I just want the strength to defend my people resonates so well because that's exactly, what he's talking about. He said even the sword of Valinda broken or not, like that'll be a great help. Like whatever we can get, So when he hears about this great weapon, what are you talking about? Throw it away. Like we're dying, bro. We're on the front lines. Like what are we talking? Are we going to try and defeat him or not? Give it to this little person? What is happening right now? Like, what? Give this to, what are we talking about? Every time is so awesome how Tolkien is an amazing writer. Boromir questions, and I want you to go back and uh, read The Fellowship. And I want you to look at Boromir's questions that he's asking. And they're so valid. But if you're not paying attention, it seems like annoying. So it's so purposeful because Gandalf and Aragorn literally are like, snap at Boromir. And it's like, no, Boromir, da 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 da, as if he knows what they're talking about. And that's so brilliant because as a reader, we know, hey, we're kind of listening to Aragorn and Gandalf because we know, hey, they know what they're talking about. But we got to take ourselves out of that. When I'm reading, I'm putting myself in, hey, how human is this character? Boromir doesn't know about this shit. He's like, what? He's like, why are we going this way? He's like, nah, I heard this place is a place of ill omen. I'm not going through there. What is happening? Why don't we go through the Gap of Rohan? And they're like, no, Boromir. And they're yelling at him like, no, Boromir, we can't go through there. Didn't you listen? He's like, I just came through there. He's like, I just came through there. And so he's valid. His question he's like, what are you talking about? They have to explain to him, you were one person, they weren't paying attention to you. When they see 9 of us leave this place where they're watching, okay, cool, all right, cool. So then he's like, we can't go through there. I don't want to go through the Mines of Moria. Why don't we just go around the White Mountains to God? We'll be in Gondor. Why don't we go through Langstrand and all? That's where people are friendly. That's our country. No, Boromir, didn't you just? He's saying valid shits. And the way you read that they're talking to him, you're like, yeah, Boromir, at first. If you're not really paying attention, you're like, yeah, stupid. Of course, why would you can't go that way? But to him, it makes perfect sense. And it absolutely is a valid question that he's asking. And this is why I love Boromir, because he's so human. Because if I was there, I would have been like, what are you talking about? I'm not giving my ring to this guy. Like, what are you talking about? I'm not giving this ring to this, to throw it in the fire. Like, what is happening, bro? Like, what are we doing? It makes perfect sense. So the human element is in Boromir the most to me, and I absolutely think it's a phenomenal portrayal of just humanity. And I just think it's amazing. That's why I love his character so much.
Yeah, and I
So
mean, Gondor's right there, like you said, on the front lines, like seeing the rise of Sauron in Mordor, like they've been living it. So obviously he's gonna think like he has a totally different perspective than everyone else in the Council of Elrond, saying like, no, I'm there, like I've seen it, like you guys are going about this the wrong way, like we gotta go this way, we gotta help Gondor, like his perspective is so valid. Um,
yeah,
and I think the movie like makes him seem, not wise, which like compared to Faramir, he is less wise. That's not his main trait, but like his points are so valid. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
movie just
I
makes him
heard about that.
impulsive and greedy and
Yeah,
you know,
they do him dirty in the movie so bad. They make him seem
Yeah.
like he doesn't have honor. I've said this before, I believe, on the podcast, but when he drops the shards of Narsil, he doesn't pick them up. That is the most bogus thing I've ever seen in my. Boromir is very respectful. He would have picked it up. Boromir is a
Hmm.
man of honor. When they try to talk about Rohan getting in league with Sauron, he absolutely no. He's like, absolutely, I will bet my honor on that they're not. And the way he sticks up for Rohan, you see what type of person and what type of friend he is. And it's heartwarming and it's beautiful. Now, Faramir has the luxury of actually being a pupil of Gandalf. So Gandalf would have given him certain type of knowledge or certain ways of thinking to where he would have been like, oh, okay, I have this type of mindset where I can look at things from the way Gandalf and Aragorn, those guys have knowledge and teachings that will give you a more worldly perspective. But when you're on the front lines, that's all you're thinking about is protecting your people. You can't see that, and you haven't had that exposure to Gandalf. So we can see and we know Faramir is right. Absolutely, his approach. Hey, we can't have the ring. We can't. But it doesn't take away from Boromir's thought process and that he's just trying to do the right thing. So I really love
Yeah.
that dynamic.
Yeah, I have in one of my Tolkien Tuesdays I talked about the dynamic between Faramir and Boromir and their relationship with the ring because that's different in the movie too, where like in the movie the ring is something that seems like it's physically corrupting you if you're nearby it and like it just took over Boromir and that makes Boromir seem weaker, which isn't the case. Like the only reason Boromir was tempted by the ring at all is because he was so motivated to help Gondor. Like he really believed that the ring could help them like protect Gondor. And so that was his motivation. It wasn't because he like physically, was becoming this corrupted being. He just like actually believed this. And then the difference with Faramir is that because he just looks at things differently and he's been a pupil of Gandalf, he knows that it won't help. Like he knows that the ring is evil and that if they have it, it's going to cause more harm than good. And so it's obviously easier for him to reject it and to not be tempted by it because he's thinking about it like a wise sort of way instead of like a dutiful sort of way.
Yeah.
but
And so,
in the movies, Faramir sure
Yeah.
did consider it. Shall we talk about the move difference between movie Faramir and book Faramir?
As someone who posts about Faramir a lot, it's like the comment that I see the most on everything that I post about Faramir is like, and honestly, it's the first Tolkien Tuesday video I ever made was like about the difference between book Faramir and movie Faramir. So I get it. They do him dirty. They really do. Um, I I tend to like kind of be okay with it in some ways just because I know that film is different than books. Like you have to make it a little bit more of a challenging dynamic. You have to show this arc of growth so that it's more meaningful eventually when he lets them go. But like if you read the book and you read book Faramir, like it is really like a slap in the face to see how he acts in the movie.
yeah, it hurts me. Everybody always asks me, "Hey, what is the biggest change that bothers you the most in from the book to the movies?" And I always say, Faramir bringing Sam and Frodo to Osgiliath is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I think it undermines what Boromir's sacrifice does and everything, because literally that's what he was going to do is bring the ring to Gondor. So what are you bringing the ring to Gondor for anyway? After that, what are we doing here? And I get it. You want to make it more, exciting and more, stress filled and do it another way. I don't know. I just hate that part so much.
Yeah.
Um, but Faramir, excuse me, Faramir's disposition about and his wisdom with these type of situations is exactly why he's beloved. And he gets empathy from people in the city. So we can talk about Baragon where he literally slays two of his fellow people that are guards of the Citadel to save Faramir when Faramir is about to get set on fire by his father. and he's going to lose his position, everything. He knows, hey, this is against the law, but I love this man so much. He's such a great captain of men. He's such a good guy that I'm going to do this. And that's the type of emotion that he evokes from people because he's such a great person. So I would like to have seen that more from the jump, even though I know they had a story to tell. I would love to have seen that from a jump because you get that sense in the book, like almost immediately, like, yo, he's a better guy. We can tell he's better by how he looks at the Easterling who perishes and he says, I wonder what he was going to be like, in his home. Like, I wonder if he's just a regular guy that just got caught up in these wars. Like that thought process. Whereas Boromir probably would like, yo, F that guy and killed him and moved throughout his day. He just looked at him as an enemy. Faramir looked at him you know, with empathy, like, I wonder if, he had a family and who he was and what was his name. And it was just so eye-opening, and it really spoke to his character. So I really liked that part about Faramir as well.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. He in the book, I mean, Pippin describes him as being like so lordly, and he compares him to Aragorn, and he's also compared to like having really strong Númenórean blood. Like all of
Yeah,
these descriptions of Faramir are like he is so like compassionate and such a like lordly man, and like everyone cherishes him in Gondor, and like he's beloved. And then, yeah, they definitely did it a little dirty in the movie.
yeah. So we have an interesting thing with Faramir and Boromir. Their bloodline is actually really cool. So one of my favorite characters in the entire Return of the King is Prince Imrahil.
Me too.
He is awesome, and I wish we could have got more of Imrahil, but I know, translation from book to film, it maybe not have worked. But Imrahil is a great lord. He's the Prince of Dol Amroth, and he is very pure Númenórean blood, because Dol Amroth is one of the places where there was, Númenórean settlements, you know, way back the Second Age. Just like Umbar and Largir and places like that where the Númenóreans settled. And he also has a little bit of Elven blood in him. So he is renowned. He is not a Black Númenórean. He's one of the Númenóreans that stayed good, probably one of the faithful. And so he is their uncle. He is the brother-in-law of Denethor, who is married to his sister, Finduilas. So their mother and their uncle, his blood is crazy. So it is stated that, just like you said, Faramir's blood runs a little more on the Númenórean side even than Denethor's or Boromir's, who are you have a lot of Númenórean blood in them as well, but they're not pure. The purest strains are going to be the royal line, which we know that the king's line is and Gondor is ended. And obviously the places I just spoke of, Umbar and Dol Amroth, Pelargir, and it's funny because the Corsairs of Umbar actually probably have a purer strain of blood in them, possibly because Castamir's sons are the ones that went over to Umbar and started the Corsairs of Umbar. So if there's any surviving members, their claim to the kingship is very strong. I was talking about that. So sorry to get off topic, but I think it's really cool
Oh,
thing
that's
right
super
there.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
no, it is.
so Faramir's blood is stated that it's more pure, and I think that also lends to it. Like, hey, if you got that pure Númenórean blood, more lordly, more kingly, more dope, and it just goes, how you're leaning, your influence, because we see Númenóreans that are influenced by bad, but when you're influenced by somebody like Gandalf, you you ain't got no choice but to be a good guy, you know? So Faramir is he chose the right tutor, and I love his disposition. I love his thought process. I love his heart. I love it so much. Faramir is dope. Yeah, he's brave as
Me
hell.
too.
Going back fighting when his father sends him out. I would have been like, "Fuck you! I'm not going out there." You go fight out there. You go get shot with a poisonous fucking get out of here. But he went
Hmm.
at the behest of his father, and he wanted to try to do some good, even if he knew it was going to bring harm to himself, and it helped. So
Yeah.
Do the books give us any more story about Faramir's apprenticeship or learning with Gandalf? Because that could be a really good spin-off series.
I don't I don't think it does too much.
It just
It
sort
doesn't
of
go into
mentions
too
that it
much.
happened, but not like
Yeah.
Yeah.
on this day they ate breakfast together and then they went on this adventure and no.
I would love that so much to see like just the like side quest of Gandalf and Faramir like going off and studying together.
You could tell how close they are when they're reunited. And Gandalf is like, yo, this ain't the first Hobbit you've seen. He's like, nah, I seen two of them in the Thillion, and they're going to the Morgul Vale. And he was like, what? Like, tell me everything. Like that was dope right there. So you could see, hey,
Yeah.
they got a close relationship. You know what I'm saying? Whereas you saw Boromir and Gandalf, they didn't really know each other, and they dealt with each other and everything like that. But Gandalf, like I said, Gandalf was always yelling at Boromir. And Aragorn and Gandalf, read the book and you'll see Gandalf is always yelling at Boromir. It's actually hilarious. It's
Yeah.
actually hilarious.
I think it's interesting, especially with the dynamic of Boromir being in the Fellowship because of the shared dream that Boromir and Faramir had. Faramir
Hmm.
had this dream, like a prophetic dream, multiple times, um, saying like, "Seek for the sword that was broken. In Imladris it dwells." Like basically guiding him to Rivendell because of what would be the Council of Elrond. And then Boromir has the same dream, and because he, is the more preferred son, like he's like, "No, I'm going to go on this quest to Rivendell and see what's up." And then he ends up joining the Fellowship. Like it's one of my favorite sort of what if questions in the Lord of the Rings of like, what if because
Hmm.
Faramir had had this dream so many times, like some sort of force that gave him this dream, prophetic dream, was guiding him to be a part of the Fellowship. And like, what would have been different if Faramir had joined the Fellowship instead of Boromir?
It's interesting because some could argue that Boromir is the reason that the ring gets destroyed because if Boromir doesn't try to take the ring, Frodo doesn't break the fellowship and go off and they needed to do that. He needed to be just with
Mm-hmm.
Sam. It wouldn't have probably worked with more of them. They definitely probably would have been captured or whatever the case may have you because the orcs knew that they were there. And a lot of people don't realize that. Like they knew that Sam and Frodo were there, and they were like, it wasn't like a big secret as people think. Like they kind of like got caught out there, but then they ended up squeaking by after they escaped from Cirith Ungol. But they knew that there was hey these guys was roaming around here. Let's go get them. They didn't
Mm-hmm.
have any idea that they were going to destroy the ring and they ended up escaping from the tower and going. But if it was more of them, it probably would have got killed in battle or some type of shit like that. Like, and
Oh
so
yeah. No, I agree
uh,
with you. I think if the Fellowship hadn't broken, they wouldn't have succeeded, like definitely. It's an interesting thought because you mentioned how Gandalf's always yelling at Boromir. We don't know who sent the dreams to them, but like it's funny to think if Gandalf sent the dreams, like because he knows Faramir, he knows how sort of like noble Faramir is. Maybe Gandalf was the one that sent it, and he was like, "I really want Faramir to come." And then when he sees Boromir come, he's just like, "Dang it! Like you're not the right guy."
It's a
I would love to think that Lorien sent the dreams. Uh,
Yeah,
no, and
Mhm.
he's the Valar of Dreams. So uh,
yeah.
that would be dope. So maybe Irmo sent the dreams. Irmo is Lorien. He's the Valar of Dreams, the brother of Namo, who is also Mandos, the Lord of the Dead. I think he sent the dreams, and Gandalf uh, encourages his strength and bravery, and a combination of those things. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's what will happen if I'm reading what the signs are and how they do things in Valinor. But that's an interesting concept. It's an interesting concept, and exactly how you said, like the what if scenario there is huge. That would actually
Mm,
be like a really good. You could do so many what if scenarios. You can make films out of that in itself, and it would be
mm,
dope. Like who could argue that? Faramir went and maybe they, this tremendous fight, and it was they make it to Mordor, and he doesn't try to take the ring, and they work together, and then what happens? There's some kind of last stand in Mordor, or maybe they make it through, or maybe they don't. It would be phenomenal, but it definitely wouldn't happen. I'm in him. They wouldn't be trying to take the ring. It would he probably would help a great deal, maybe survive. Maybe Merry and Pippin don't get taken by the Uruk-hai. You know, who knows?
yeah. But then Rohan might fall and
Rohan might fall. It's Oh man, it's mind-boggling the stuff that
yeah.
that you could talk about.
Mm.
Now, what are your thoughts on Denethor's change? Because Denethor has a change of heart about Faramir when he sees Faramir is wounded basically to the death. And but it comes a dollar short and a day late. And then he tries to just take the easy way out and off both of off himself and Faramir.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously one of the saddest parts of the book, in my opinion. Just like the distraught that he goes through. But um, I got asked a question recently of someone who said, like, do you think that Denethor actually loved Faramir because he treated him so poorly? And I was like, of course he did. Like, absolutely he did. Like he, was so focused on Boromir that dynamic was poor. But like after Boromir's death and then after Faramir's sacrifice going back to Osgiliath, even though there was like no hope of doing that, like when Denethor sees like Faramir almost dead, like of course that's going to cause a reaction of like he's still my son, like this is, what have I done? Um I don't know. I think it's interesting, like I almost feel like that's a turning point for Denethor of like when he really finally like loses hope. Like he has
Yeah.
been so strong-willed in defending Gondor, but that's like the breaking point for him of just like no, like we're done.
Yeah, he's like, I lost my only son that I have left, and I know in his mind, he knows Gondor is gonna fall. So for those who don't know, Sauron shows him the ships of the Corsairs coming up the Anduin, and he's like, "Oh shit, there's no way we're gonna win this. There's no way we're gonna win this. We're doing all this for naught. You know what I'm saying? For nothing." But he still prepared a great defense. He put the Ramus Echo was getting rebuilt. The defenses at Osgiliath. They sent the red arrow, unlike in the movie where Denethor doesn't want them to light the beacons. He sends the red arrow out. Gandalf and Pippin actually, pass the guy who brings it. It's not as if he wasn't protecting the city, but it's just he falls to that despair and he completely loses it. He completely loses it when Faramir, and that shows the love that he has, because that is the breaking point, the tipping point where he's like, I don't even want to live no more. Forget this whole thing. And my son is dead. We're gonna go to the halls of our fathers, and we're gonna go to the houses of the dead, and you're gonna burn us and on this pyre. And him and Gandalf have a big showdown, and Gandalf is like, yo, dude, like, come on, like you're a steward of Gondor, like you got to do better than this. And Gandalf makes the choice not to go fight out in the Pelennor to save them, because if they do this, if Denethor does this, it's like the fall of Gondor anyway. It's like this is what your people are doing. Like I can't let this be a representation of your leader. Like I gotta save Faramir. I gotta save him. Otherwise, you people are going to like implode. So he makes the hard choice, and this is where we see Theoden get slain. And Gandalf is very hurt by that because he's like, maybe I could have done something, facing the Witch King, but the Witch King would have beat him anyway. You know what I'm saying? So he makes that choice, but I think he made the right choice where he goes and he lifts Faramir up, like he bounds up the stick. Like Gandalf was like a young man at that point where he showed
Oh.
some of his full power, where he's like, all right, I got to do this. This is something that needs to get done, and he saves Faramir, and Denethor perishes, but in complete despair, and the love of his son brought him to the deepest depths of that despair, not only what Sauron did, because he really did love Faramir. So that's how I look at it.
Yeah, and that also like because like you said, it was so important for them to be saved. Like that's this at the same moment when Beargron like breaks his duty to save Faramir. Like he technically breaks the law because he is like knows how important it is for Faramir to survive.
Yes, such a phenomenal moment there. I mean, they started, man. Tolkien was cooking with gas with this book, man. The whole thing is done so excellently. So shout out to Tolkien, man.
Yeah, I
You
think
are
we
the
have
greatest.
successfully
Shout out.
redeemed the names of these three gentlemen for sure over this course of this episode.
Yeah,
That was a great talk, guys. That was a fun discussion.
yeah, man. Hey, man. I call him like I call him like I see him now. We can separate the book characters from the movie characters anytime, and I'm going to give you a better understanding of the book characters just because there's more there, and you got to understand they make choices with movies. Just like if you ever hear me talk about Frodo, I hate movie Frodo. Like I'm going to clown movie Frodo every day of the week, and you can't tell me nothing about him. That's great. But book Frodo, now I'm going to give him a lot of praise. He's so wise. He's so brave and bold, and he actually makes plans, and like he's dope. And he's not nothing to be trifled with. Frodo in the book is actually really, on point. But Frodo in the movies, he is a liability. He's a liability. He's a shame. He's sad. All we see is him do. And I understand the weight of the ring. And they leaning on that so much, they take a lot of his character away, and it's sad. So we got to understand the differences there, and unfortunately, that's what happens with Boromir, Faramir, and Denethor. But the portrayal, they got their point across in the film, and we understand that dynamic. So they did a good job there. You know what I'm saying? And they do a great job of making you hate Denethor. That fucking tomato out there,
Oh yeah.
you're like, yo,
The tomato.
you're disgusting, my guy.
And you mentioned earlier like who else Faramir reminded Denethor of, and then you mentioned that he's the nephew of Imrahil. Faramir was really close and really similar to his mother, and his mother passed away when Faramir was very, very young, and that
Very
was
young.
like really, really hard on Denethor, which I think really also adds to the sort of not great dynamic that they have because he sees so much of his late wife in Faramir.
hmm
And maybe even blames Faramir a little bit for the fact that she's gone.
Yeah, yeah. Did she die in childbirth, or I can't remember what it
No,
was.
I think Faramir's like 5 years old or something
Yeah,
like that
something.
when she
Yeah, I know she
dies.
didn't die of childbirth. I don't know what I'm
Yeah.
thinking about, but I'm trying to remember back to exactly. Yeah, she died when he was real young. Yeah, she died when he was real young. So
Mm,
yeah, I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. That's tough.
yeah.
That's got to be tough. And it does state that he really did love her. But he was also concentrating on, impressing his father and the rule of Gondor and things
Mm,
like that as well. Um, but he had a lot of hard choices, and it goes to play to his will that he handled things good up until that point. Like he was a very great king, like not king, steward. He was a great, very great steward. So just that damn Palantir, man, leave it
yep.
alone, my dude.
Don't fuck with Palantirs.
Overreaching your bounds,
A
overreaching your
little
bounds.
Icarus there. Yeah, a little
So
Icarus story.
there is a question I do want to ask you, Miranda. Now I want you to
Mm,
answer me honestly, okay? All right.
okay.
All right. So typically we get to this point in the show where I want to ask you any character in the entire Legendarium. You're not relegated to just the Lord of the Rings. You can use Hobbit, the Silmarillion, Unfinished Tales, whatever you like. I want to know, who would you marry? Who would you get to fight for you? Like, who would you get to protect you? And who would you want to fight?
Mm, okay. Well, I would marry Faramir. I have to say it.
Big
How did I
surprise there,
know?
folks.
There's nobody should be surprised. Absolutely nobody should be surprised that I would marry Faramir. Um, who would I want to fight for me? I think I would choose Ecthelion, Lord of the Fountains from Gondolin. He is like one of the most badass elves. I love Ecthelion. I love his story. Plus he'd be
Yo,
playing the flute the whole time, which is just an added bonus.
yo,
Like, love him.
you just earned points in my heart. Ecthelion is one of my favorite elves of all time. So it goes Fingolfin and Ecthelion and Beleg and Turgon and stuff like that. Ecthelion is like one of my favorites of all time.
That's
And
the
Me
helm
too.
you have, right?
yeah, I have the helm of Ecthelion. Yep.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. Thank you
Yeah,
very
I
much.
love him. Who would I want to fight? Is this like who I think I could beat, or just like I really want to
Whoever
like
you
fight
want to
them?
fight, whether you
Whatever
think you can beat them or
reasoning you
not,
want to give.
whatever reasoning.
I'd fight Ted Sandyman, the
Okay.
Hobbit.
Okay.
Mm,
Hate
mm.
that guy.
Fuck that
Hate that
guy,
guy.
man.
He's
Fuck Ted
closed-minded.
Sandyman.
He sides with the ruffians. He's rude to Sam. Don't like him. I'd fight
Don't
him.
like him. Yeah, he's over hanging out with that southerner, you know what I'm saying? We
Yep.
don't mess with him. He's
Nope.
spying, he's doing all kind of stuff over there. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I think you could take Ted Sandyman. I
Thank
think I
you.
think you got
Thank
it.
you. I'd like
You know
to
what I'm
think
saying?
so.
I think you got it. So that's
Yeah.
very good. So we got Faramir. You would marry Faramir, which who would
Yeah.
blame you? You know, you'd be the
Right.
princess of Athelion,
Mm-hmm.
which would be dope.
Yeah.
The Garden of Gondor. And you would have Ecthelion of the Fountain, who I believe his namesake is the two Ecthelions that rule Gondor as
Mm-hmm.
stewards. Ecthelion the first and Ecthelion the second. Ecthelion the second is actually the one who built that great tower that's on the top of Minas Tirith, the Tower of Ecthelion. And his name becomes a war cry amongst the elves. That's
Right?
how great he is. No
So
other
cool.
elf has slain more orcs than Ecthelion. He is renowned. He slays Gothmog, the Lord of the Balrogs. Ecthelion is that guy. Everybody always like Glorfindel, Glorfindel. Fuck Glorfindel. I love Glorfindel, but Ecthelion is that guy.
No, I'm with you.
Ecthelion is that
I'm with
guy.
you.
So that's dope. And we don't fuck with Ted Sandy, man. So I'll help you jump
Thank you.
Those are good
him.
answers. I like those answers.
Great
Thanks.
answers. Great answers. Um, it has I've been a pleasure, having you on, talking to you about this stuff, about your passion. I know you love Faramir and talking about Boromir and Denethor and the whole dynamic of that. I'm so enamored with your talent and your skill and your knowledge that you possess. And shout out to the Rangers of Trevelyan once again. You guys did such an amazing job. You're truly a blessing in the community, and we appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This was so awesome to talk to you guys. I'm so gled we could do this. I really appreciate it.
Mhm.
After we
One
after
more
we like
time where we
rescheduled like
can.
3 times. Sorry about that.
So that happens, life happens.
It's
Miranda,
fine.
where
That's
can we
life.
find you online one more time?
Oh yeah, you can find me on Instagram at exlibrismir or on TikTok at exlibrismir. I also have a Discord server that you can get from the links in those bios. Um, but yeah, I'd love to have everyone here to join the community, join
Right.
Tolkien Tuesdays.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So I will close off the episode with our usual self-care tip. This week's series was inspired by none other than our boy Faramir. And the tips today are how to overcome the need for approval. Number one, cultivate awareness. So noticing the root cause of your approval seeking might help you figure out what underlies the need that's driving you. Tip number two is to learn how to enjoy solitude. Spend time alone so you're not constantly with others. And then so the more comfortable you are with yourself and understand um, what you can do, then you don't need other people telling you what you can do as much, right? So you can try traveling on your own, you can eat at a restaurant or a cafe alone, enjoy a book, or take on a solo hobby. Tip number three is to use positive affirmations. So instead of seeking affirmations from others, again, you can provide those to yourself. You can try saying, something like these three simple things to yourself every day. I am worthy, I have value, and I am capable of making good decisions. Tip number four is to celebrate your successes, which allows you to congratulate yourself instead of waiting for other people to congratulate you for you. And tip number five is not sarcastic at all. It is genuine and sincere, and it is to, if you believe that it would help, to seek therapy and to talk to someone about how you can address those feelings that you have that drive you.
Very, very good self-care tips as always. Shout out to the host again, KaliCosplay, one of the hosts of trivia as well, and the mastermind of so many things in our community. She is the queen of our community, so give her a round of applause as well. We love you, Kali, as always. We always got to give you your flowers
Yes.
because you deserve them. Thank you so much for all you do. Thank you so much, Miranda, for coming up on our podcast. And yeah, that is it for today's episode of Voices of Arda. We are bringing some heavyweights from the Lord of the Rings community onto this podcast. So I think everybody needs to make sure you're joining the YouTube channel. You make sure you're joining over on Spotify, and make sure you're joining on Google Podcasts and Apple Podcasts, because we're doing the damn thing. It's happening. It's going down. Like, Voices is coming up. So make sure you like, share, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you know when we got a new episode. Okay? And yeah, we are out. Thank you so much, guys. Peace.
Thank you.
Thank you.